Hello and welcome to the Gallery Central. I better read because it says my name is. My name is Frederick. I'm currently acting gallery programs manager, and I would like to start by acknowledging the Whadjuk people of Noongar Nation as the traditional custodians on the land on which we stand today. I pay my respects to the elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. It's my pleasure to introduce Tammy Yu-Ting Hsieh. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I've been practicing, I asked my sources. Tammy is a curator, editor, and researcher based in Taiwan. She has previously held positions at the Taiwan Pavilion at the Venice Biennale, Hongam Museum in Taipei, and National Taiwan Museum of Fine Arts in Taichung. Tammy's residency is part of the North Metropolitan TAFE partnership with Perth Institute of Contemporary Arts, and it provides opportunities for national and international artists and curators to engage with art staff and students. We're looking forward to future residency in partnership with PICA. There will be quite a few this year, but Tammy, now microphone is yours. I'll let you introduce yourself whatever way you want, and later on, if we have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you, Project, and hello everyone to come on this Tuesday noon, your precious lunch break. So I'm Tammy, I'm curator from Taiwan, and I'm doing this 2-month residency in Perth at PICA. So it's like nearly the end. I have 2 weeks left. Yeah, and Project told me that most of the people coming today are like students at TAFE. So my topic will center on like my practices for the past 10 years. And so today I'll show you some photos, like things I've never shown before in my other speech, because this is like 10 years since I started to do this, getting myself, stepping into this arts and cultural field. So my topic is curating on paper, space, and places. So because I think myself are often switching between editor, curator, and also like art producer. So this is why I think, but like also in some way they kind of share something. So this is why I have this topic. And I will tell you a bit more about how I get into this curator role. So for my undergrad, I did English literature. So I didn't do a fine art degree. And I had an exchange year at University of British Columbia in Canada. And it was then that I started to take museum studies courses. And it was great because it's not only taught in class. The school has a very famous museum of anthropology. So we actually go into the museum every week to go into their conservation room, go into their gallery, and to know how exactly people in museum work. And also, at that time I was also like writing for the university's newspaper. So I was doing a lot of like interview, and one of them is the curator of this exhibition. It's called, because it's 10 years, I'm not sure if I memorized it right, it's the First Nation language in Vancouver, the Musqueam people, Cessnam, the city before the city. So that exhibition, it was very unique to me because that exhibition displays only the voice of the First Nation people. There's no one word that is by academic and like non-indigenous anthropologists. So the exhibition has like multimedia display to recreate their kitchen, and then they have the sound and to tell like what it was like for them to like have food, how they cook, and also like all the panels had the like recounts of the First Nation people. So that gave me a huge it inspired me that how storytelling can be so different, and how storytelling can become a way to empower people, empower this community that had been marginalized before. So this was something that kind of triggered me to step out of literature with only book and text into this museum world that has multimedia, that has object, sound, and all different kinds of elements. And then there's another exhibition that left a very huge impact on me. But I think it left a huge impact on me because at that time, I was not going to a museum as much as now. So this is an exhibition called Rebel Bodies. It's an exhibition about dance. So when you go to see this exhibition, when you step into it, the staff, they will give you a headset, like a headphone, and then when you walk inside it, they have 6 sections, and then as you walk from one section to another section, there are different videos and display of the dance. They move, the sounds change as you walk. So it's like you're also walking in a live performance, and then there's different channels. So that also tells me how the space can create, and the movement can create this kind of multi-layered storytelling. So these experience that year, got too excited. Let me check again. Right, cool. Right, so that was my third year in college, and then the last year I went back to Taiwan. That was the year I was supposed to be busy with job searching. I was supposed to do that, but because I was so inspired by my experience previously, and then I was also triggered, my friend also taught me into. So you can see this is a building that's near my university in Taipei, and you can see on this is the 4th floor, there's some light. So it's like a co-sharing apartment that was run by some of our seniors, that they rent a space and then they renovate it and split it into spaces that more comfortable, and then for people to live. So, and they have multiple spaces around Taipei. And this one is close to the university that we had that I went to at that time. So my friend and I, we had this crazy idea that we want to turn one of the living room of the rented apartment into an exhibition space. Well, originally they wanted to do library, but then we didn't have the budget to buy all the books. So we decided, okay, we'll do an exhibition. But it's an exhibition that focuses on one book per month, and we'll take inspiration from that book. So the first book that we picked, because I was doing into the English lit, so we picked William Blake's The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, a classic choice. So we did that, and then we translated it into Mandarin, and then we made a handmade book, and also my friend and I kind of improvised, and not just translation, but we also added some images and some graphics with it, and also we put it on the art photography work on the wall, on the window, and then we had performances, we had poetry reading, and so that was kind of also very memorable. It's the first time for me to actually run an alternative art space by my own, even though it's just a 15 square meter space on someone else's living room, and then you have to climb up and so we will go there during when we don't have classes, and then we will open it, and then people can ring the bell, and then they can ring, and then we will let them in, and they'll come to the 4th floor to see it. So that was also how I first kind of had a hand about how maybe curating was, but I was not really sure. And also we had a concept, and then also we made the work, and we were thinking to do it one book per month. But then we later realized this is impossible, like to run the space, to make the work at the same time. So we ended up having just that show, but we have like multiple events surrounding it. So this was very like college-like experience. And as I said, because my background was in English literature, so like I also did a lot of like university level journalism, let's say. So I was very interested in writing, editing. So then in my grad school, so I did museum studies for my master's degree. So, and during that time, my friend invited me to work on this zine. It's called Evoked. So there's one copy over there that was in 2018. So the beginning of this is actually that we were not thinking to make a zine at the beginning, actually, because we knew that in Taiwan, it's also like a quick background. So in Taiwan, there are also First Nation people, and it's roughly 2% of the population, so a bit similar in Australia. And we have officially recognized 16 groups. They all have their own unique language, culture, and there are also more that have not been recognized because they were integrated with Han people too much, so their language and culture are less recognizable. So, and some of them are exceptional weavers, embroider, like in their culture. And we listened to we went to a speech and we were shocked that of all those beautiful embroidery textile patterns, only 2% that they are still recognizable for the meanings of it. So we thought like how much like the culture has been lost through different layers of colonization. Because in Taiwan we have different waves of colonization. From 17th century, it's Dutch in the south and Spanish in the north. And then there's Han Chinese, and then the Qing Empire, and then Japanese colonizers, and then Chiang Kai-shek came from mainland China. So it's so many different colonizers, different waves. So the culture of First Nation people in Taiwan have been tremendously lost and displaced. So at that time we thought that, well, this is important. There need to be like a culture database to retain the knowledge and to build it. They need to have it. But then because we were just like individuals, very like young people, passionate about it, but like not really knowing how we can do about it. And like we didn't have the money, we didn't have the skills to actually build like this database. And even though we felt at the loss of it, also my friend and I, we're not First Nation people, but we just very feel about the loss. So we started to like talk to experts, talk to people, and we decided that maybe this path of talking to them is something worth recording, is something that worth to share with others, like this journey. So we ended up making this zine that documents our conversations with indigenous weavers and contemporary artists that apply weaving, also museum anthropologists, and also like digital artists like using weaving as a technique. Like we ended up having multiple conversations with them, and then we documented in this zine, thinking that it might become like a platform or like somewhere that we can start to have a conversation. But also by that time, we later on when we were thinking of like the next issue, we first do textile, then we want to do accessory for the second issue. But then we have the big problem, which is because we don't want to limit ourselves just to indigenous culture in Taiwan, because we're not, like, and also there's a multicultural in Taiwan. But like, also the majority of Taiwanese Han Chinese, like Han people, we are immigrants, like descendants from southern China. So a lot of the culture also from southern China. So we were kind of got stuck in this kind of dilemma of how the national identity and also how the culture, how to split like China and Chinese culture. So we didn't know how to continue on, that's why we make a hold of it. But then we also had a special version of people that also did a collection of this traditional craft in Taiwan. So this was like an early endeavor, but like this zine, let's say, it also like kind of helped me got my first long-term full-time museum job. So the director then at Kaohsiung Museum of Fine Art, where I worked for 5 years, she was very amazed by this zine. So I was recruited to be an editor in the museum. So I was in the team that make the museum magazine and also other publications. So at that time, my challenge was to kind of transform the ideas into this paper form. So this now, oh, what happened? Okay. Okay.
Here we go.
Come on. Okay, cool. Well, give me a signal if it's not on, then yeah. Yeah, so for this one, this is the first publication I was asked to make in the museum. And there's also one copy over there. So it's like a booklet with 3 small books. So it was actually in a very weird situation that I have to make this book because we have this budget to make an exhibition. It's like an international exhibition, so we got this grant for a huge budget, but it's a 2-year project, so the exhibition will only happen for the 2nd year. But then we also have to do something for the 1st year to show we did something. So I was asked to make a booklet when there's not an exhibition yet. So this is like a preliminary concept book in a way. But because of this book, because we made this book, the booklet, it later became like the concept and the theme of the exhibition. So this is also kind of how usually we are used to have an exhibition first and then we have this catalog to kind of summarize everything. But this is actually the other way around, and it's also quite interesting that sometimes you can explore it first in a paper format with like less money or like more experimental, and then you take it into this space. So for this one, I have this 3 booklets. The exhibition is called Pan-Austronesian Art Festival. Austronesian is the linguistic and ethnic group of a huge group of people that from Taiwan to New Caledonia, Pacific, like it's across the Pacific. And some say like Taiwan is like the origin, like they started to migrate from Taiwan. So the museum that I worked at, Kaohsiung Museum of Fine Art, they were one of the first institutions in Taiwan that first started to promote indigenous contemporary art. And that was just like 20 years ago, so it was quite recent. So, but when I went there, the person that started to do the project, she had already retired. So we were thinking of a new way to continue this engagement. And the director then at the time, she thought that maybe, because before we will only have indigenous exhibition for indigenous artists and not with others. So they're always separated, they always have their own category. And we kind of wanted to break that. So this exhibition was like to, the director called it Pan-Austronesian Arts Festival, to kind of redefine it and to invite indigenous and non-indigenous, Taiwanese and non-Taiwanese artists to join in this exhibition. So the booklet that from there, the white one is the first one, and then the dark, you can see there's the dark one, that's the second one, and the colorful one is the third one. So for the first one, the white one is like from known to unknown, is like kind of talking about from the explorer, the traveler's idea. And then, so on the book, I have scratches that looks a bit like island, and you can actually scratch it and then to uncover like what's on it. So it seems that it's blank, but it's not. It's just hidden, and you have to scratch it. And then the second one is about the dark history, like because of this encounter, there is this conflict. And the third one is about how there's this possibility to reconcile and coexist. So this was one book that I made. And also because my main role was to be the chief editor of the museum's magazine. So we used to have it for, we used to publish every 2 months, and it's like thinner and with very colorful cover. But like, because actually magazine is actually kind of declining in a way because of digital media. So when I came in, we wanted to have this reform, so I changed it that we publish only 2 times per year, but we have a new digital website along with it. And also because I want to make it stand out, because for the other ones, you don't really recognize it if you see different issues. So I discussed with the graphic designer, and we have this format of the new magazine that you can tell by its design that it's like a series of it. And so because I do it every half year, and oftentimes like it's a bit like a weird existence. It's not a catalog, but it's also not something that's super up to date. So, and also like the catalog will include something already, things that are discussed in the exhibition. So what can a magazine do to kind of reflect on it? So this is one example of the magazine that I did. I didn't have this copy here, but because at that time we had an exhibition to rediscover Taiwan's history, Taiwan's art history. And this work here is called Water of Mortality by the first modern sculptor in Taiwan. His name was Hsieh. He's a very, very important figure for us. And this work, because Hsieh, he was trained in Japan, and he's the first artist that was entering major art exhibition in Japan. So before that, in Taiwan, the only like sculpture thing you see would be on temple, and then it's more like the relief, not exactly like sculpture and not. So he was very important, but because he was trained in Japan. And after Taiwan was handed over from Japan to mainland China in 1945, and then there was a civil war. So the Chiang Kai-shek, the KMT government then, they really want to erase this colonial heritage or like trace, remnant of Japanese influence. So this sculpture, it was like intentionally destroyed, like tainted. There was something that were like, or because at that time, people that were not so progressive, so they couldn't really accept this idea of having a naked woman. So this sculpture, it was tainted, and someone had drew on, like, on her like inner side, like. So this sculpture was hidden, and a family kind of hid it for over 50 years. And everyone knew there was this sculpture, but like no one knows like where is it, or like when we'll see it again. So it's kind of became a myth in our art history. It was after half century, the political situation has changed, and we now have this, the family that protected this sculpture felt it was safer to give it to the government to show it. So that was then that we finally saw this sculpture, so it was very monumental for us. So the catalog, of course, will talk about that history. So for me, in my magazine, like the topic will be, I said it's the search of the artwork, that besides this sculpture, what else artworks that have not been recovered in Taiwan, and also other like famous cases. So this is kind of like an extension of how, as an editor of the museum, how I draw inspiration from exhibition, but not repeating the content. Yeah, so this is like half of my role in the exhibition, but also at the same time, I also have worked as an independent curator before. So I will talk about another project that's more about spaces. So this was my first curatorial project. So I thought, personally, this is very meaningful for me. And so this project is about it's called When Islands Dream. So it's plural term, like when islands. And so most people in Taiwan as this island, this one. But actually, because of the Civil War, there are other offshore islands that used to belong to mainland China are run by Taiwan. So this is one of them. It's here. It's called Mazu Island. So this is what I found on Mazu, because it's very interesting. It shows that it's in such proximity with mainland China, but this far from Taiwan. This is like a different kind of angle, because we situate the center from Taiwan. And this is the first time I found it situated from this small sets of islands. And because they were close to mainland China, that you can take a boat 20 minutes to mainland China, or like you can try to swim over there. So these islands, they are basically the front line. So they went through like harsher military law period. In Taiwan, we have the world's longest military law period of 38 years that censorship on media, press, and no new political party, and no political descendants will be sent to jail. So, but on the islands, it's even longer. And the martial law period in the Taiwan, this man Taiwan was relieved in 1987. On the island, it's until 1992. So it's 5 years later. And they have a harsher one, so they cannot move freely within the islands, but also they cannot travel freely to Taiwan. They have their own currency. They can only trade on the island. And everyone on the island has to do military service. And there's night curfew, so there's no lighting at night. And you cannot play basketball, because you can float it. You can use it to flow to mainland China. So there's all this kind of stress on the island, and it's a front line, so they're more army, way more army than the residents. So people, they were under this extreme stress preparing for the war, but the war never happened. There was never like a landing war. So it was just keep on waiting. So, and I didn't know about this until grad school. So this was never shared in our history textbook for children in Taiwan, like this mainland. I always find it funny to say mainland Taiwan. So yeah, so I was so shocked, and oftentimes it's this kind of curiosity and ignorance that prompt me to probe into it. So Because also it was at that time that we started to look at more of this dark history of Taiwan. Like I said, the martial law period, how political dissidents they were jailed. And while I was uncovering something on Taiwan, that it then shocked me more that there's somewhere seemingly close by, but like they have an entirely different life. And at that time, I was immersed in the trauma theory of how to deal with it. And there's some theory that said trauma might emerge from the dreams, that is something subconsciously. And then I found out that on the island that there's one temple on the island you can see. There's mattress and people sleeping. Because every year on one day, you can go to this temple and there is this dreaming ceremony that you can ask the deity questions, and then the way that they give you answers is that you have to try to fall asleep, and then you have to dream, and that dream will be your answer. So dreaming is a way to get answers. That was very interesting for me. And if you have problem falling asleep, because this is a really tiny temple, it's like only a fourth of the space here. And then you have to sleep with other strangers. That's kind of like difficult. So for those that have difficulty to kind of fall asleep, there's someone that's like more sensitive, and then he or she will try to dream for you. So this is kind of substitute dreamer. And I found this idea super interesting, that you can dream for someone to seek an answer. And for me, that's kind of like what artists do, like they dream for the society. So I decided that maybe this is a way for me to get to know more of the island as an outsider. And also, so I invited 5 artists to create artworks. And this is also like the actual dream card that you will get. Like you write on this card, and then they give you this, they give you the earplug and also like the pillow, like air balloon pillow. So yeah, so I invited 5 artists. They are 3 Taiwanese and 2 French artists. But because at that time I didn't know anyone on the island, and it also quite interestingly, I had the idea, like I found everything on the internet, and then so I write this project. Like it was actually like an assignment for one of my course. So, and then there's an open call for curatorial project. So I kind of like revised it and then submitted. So I had never been to the island before. I submit to the open call, and then like I got the open call, I got the grant, and then I was like, I was like, oh my God, like, because I was not expecting to get it at that time, because I knew I didn't really go to the island myself. I'm not from the island, but somehow the jury, maybe they're too curious to know what would happen. So they grant me this, this opportunity to make it. So, and it was also my first project. So I literally still have like very minimal idea about what curating is. And I thought like, well, I'll do this, and then if I don't like it, I'll not do it again. So, yeah, so of course, I bumped into all different sets of challenges while I was trying to make it. Because like I was saying, I had the idea and I asked artists to do it, so it's basically all commission project. And I'm not from the island, so because I got the grant, I have the budget to travel to the island, because it's not really cheap to travel there. And like I was so nervous at the beginning. I asked people that have been to the island a lot, and they were just like, you don't have to pretend that you know a lot, because you're really a tourist for the first time you go there. Like, you have to acknowledge the gap. You have this idea, but like this can also be just your dream, right? So, and also like the final exhibition will take place in Taipei, not on the island. So you also know the audience that you're talking to. Like my audience was not the people from the islands. Actually, it's more for people in Taiwan. So this exhibition will become like a bridge to tell them like what's happening or like what the artists have felt on the island. And also like when I approach them, the people will be asking like who is actually doing the dreaming, like who are they? Because even though they're all in this kind of stressful this time period, they all have different ideas. So it's also very important like who I was speaking to. And of course, the time, the budget, and place. Because it's like a grant for emerging curators, so it was not a lot. I only had like 4,000 Australian dollar at the time to do like commission work. And actually, like I got the grant, and then I started to work full time for the Kaohsiung Museum of Fine Art. So I couldn't really say, okay, I'll live a month at the island. I couldn't. So I have to make these constant trips. I travel like there 6-7 times. Every time I try to stay 1 week, 2 weeks, and then and also like that was also the first time for me to really commission artists. So it's also how I try to work with the artists that we work for the first time, and they're all different with different medium, because I try to commission artists of different media to show how they all dream differently. So there's performance art, and there's the sound artist, and there's also artists that work more with workshop. So it's all very different, and every artist works differently. Some like research, some don't. So. But like it's a commission project, so I was super stressed like how they will make in the end. So yeah, this was the final outcome. It's not a big exhibition, it's by 5 works. And so one of the work is from the result of the workshop, like the artist, we take people to the tunnels, because on the islands they have so many tunnels. And to invite them to kind of re-experience what it was like, and also we help them to draw their like psychological map on the island, and then the artists make it into an art book. And this is the one that's most challenging, because the project was done in 2020 to 2021, which is the time of COVID. So remember, I had 2 French artists. One of them lived in Taiwan, so no problem, but the other actually lives in France. And like when I applied to it, I thought I'll fly her to Taiwan, she'll talk to the people, and then we'll make them work on the island. But because of COVID, she couldn't come. So we were like, oh, so how are we gonna do it remotely when she cannot come to the island herself? So throughout we finished the project, she didn't really come to the island. Like we couldn't, because yeah. So she had to do everything remotely, but she's a performance artist. How do we do it? But then, and she usually performs herself. So without her presence, how are we making it work when she cannot be on the island? So we have discussed, and she also realized that because she's not from the island, so she thought maybe it would be not appropriate for her to perform, and that she couldn't visit the place. So we had the idea that instead of performing herself, she invite 3 locals to perform. And but what's the content? What will they perform? So the artist Emma Dusson, she is a very inquisitive artist. She often asks questions. A lot of her works are formed by questions. So she was curious how the people on the island would question the time back then. Because oftentimes the locals, they would take for granted, like, this is how things were because of that time. But the artist asked them, like, but maybe when you have this freedom and when you have this, to really reflect, how would you ask questions. How would you question like what had happened before? So I collect questions of all like the islanders, and then I, of course, like I collected and then I translated into English for her. And then she read that, and then she got the inspiration to write like a song for the island. And then I invite 3 people from the island. But I have to say, because the islands, remember that it's not a bit far from Taiwan, they're closer to mainland China, so they speak a dialect that no other place in Taiwan speak. So I don't understand that dialect. But the artist wanted to compose the song, ask them to sing in that dialect. So we have to do this kind of multi-layered translation that she composed this, she had the lyrics she write first the lyrics in English. I translate that into Mandarin. And then I asked the islanders to translate that into their dialect. Then they read it with the sound. I record it and I send it back to the artist and to try to compose with that sound into this song, and they try to sing together. So it's like a multi-layered translation. And then they also like she tried to, this is like a Zoom call we did that she tried to really interact with the islanders, tell them how she would want them to perform. So I have this short video that you can see. Wait, let me pull it out so you can see the final result. So this is how it was shown. Because it was about dreaming, so it was projected to 3 mattresses, and we kind of erect the mattresses so it will be like monolith, and then for them too. So you can see we have Mandarin, the dialect, and the dialect in alphabet and English. So she's asking, we came from that side, why can't we go there? Why can't we go? And why are we always treated differently? So yeah, we didn't have that much time, so yeah, this was the project. Yeah, and then of course I made it into this catalog. It's also over there, so you can have a look later. So this is the final project that I will share today. It's called Between Waves and Soils. It's a an exhibition that asks like, who really owns the land, who can have the right to draw borders, be it human, non-human, nature, and artificial. And there are two works that I will introduce here. One work is by Labai Yong. She's a Chukru artist, is one of the indigenous tribe in Taiwan. And this work is a continuation of her previous project, which is called Dongguasan. So Dongguasan is a project that after Labai participated in the anti-cement mining movement in Hualien, she reflected on her hometown, which also mines serpentine mine, and she visited the mining site. And seeing how the mountain has been scarred, she was very moved, and then she wanted to wrap the mountain with the weaving cloth, because weaving was very important in Chukwu culture, and it's also a major medium that she used for her contemporary art. And she invited 10 weavers that they all make a work by them, and then they exhibited in the mining site, because that was actually the time the mine site was on hiatus. So as a response to how mine has influenced the land. So this is a weaving cloth that's as huge that it can cover the excavator. And then Labai also made this work called My Body is Half a Mountain. She compares a mother's body, so you can see the breast, and also that's like this kind of milk, and also how she actually covers the child's seat that her son used to use, and also with the dinosaurs that her son loves. So this works is how the mountain as like a mother has been given and given to the human. So for the exhibition I curated, we invited her to make this massive textile work, which is here. It's called Weaving Mountain. That is basically kind of portray this kind of migration route of her people, because they were also forced to move to the site where they lived during Japanese colonial period, when they lost the war with the Japanese. And then there's the mining site, and how the debris had influenced also the river, and then flow over to the Pacific. So this is one. And another work I show in the exhibition is by artist Tai Guojie. Because while I was working a lot with the offshore islands in Taiwan, I noticed a lot of things on Taiwanese straits. And one of them is how many there were the sand dredging boats that took away the sand in our seabeds that caused the shoreline to shrink in these islands. So I told Tai Guojie about this, and he's an artist that often works with how maps are drawn, how borders were drawn, and how the power that relate with it. So she was very interested in it, and he made this work. It's called vertical land, because usually we think of land as something that's flat. But when you think about how the shoreline and how the cliffs were shrinked, he thought of it as vertical. So this was the boat that near on this Taiwan Strait, and how some of the sand went to Xiamen to build the airport there. This is the kind of boat that they have. And there was ones that, because there were so many sand taken away, the undersea cable were bare, so it was more easily to be harmed. And so there was an incident in 2023 that for a month they didn't have the cable for use, so there was very limited internet access on the islands. So Tai Guojie, he draws inspiration from this kind of agave. This is kind of this was introduced species before to the islands as a protection. So he invited the residents to kind of grow the plants all together as like a gesture to defend the land. So in the exhibition, you can also see this wooden structure that's a bit like defense. Okay, so sorry I've been taking a bit too much time, so I'll quickly say, so my project here in Australia is because I talked about the mining that artist works, so I'm also interested to see how mining has been a huge influence here in Western Australia. And this is an interactive design I saw in the WA Museum Boulevard Bar Dip to show the mining process. And also this is some artist studio visit I've done, and I did the super pits in Kalgoorlie, and also went to the Jarradale forest to see the Alcoa mining that's very, very close to the Serpentine Den. It's just like here. And also there's some comparable between Taiwan and Australia in terms of mining. Most of them are on indigenous land. And interestingly, like, even though the scale of mining in Taiwan is very small, we have our main industry, one of the main industry in Taiwan is chip manufacturing that demands a lot of electricity and water. And 80% of electricity in Taiwan is coal-fired, LNG-fired, but we don't have any of that in Taiwan, so we export it from Australia. Like half of the coal from Australia and 40% of the LNG from Australia. Yeah, so for me, curating as a cross-cultural mediator, a collective way of creation, like exploring methodology and how it's a way I engage with places. Some reflections that as a sensitive ally and a sensitive other to acknowledge the gap, try to speak nearby but not for that, and try to form reciprocal relationship, and try to have more sustaining practice. Like doing the first one is difficult, but it's more difficult to sustain and to understand the system and rules, but not to be restricted by it. And even though there's always confusion and anxiety, this is something we'll have to cope with along the way. Yeah, so thank you very much. I'm sorry I took up a bit too much time. So if you have any questions, let me know. Sorry?
What's next for you? Do you have a project?
I do have a project. Well, for the mining, I'm still exploring, and we'll see if it will become an exhibition. We'll see. But I have another project that, so the Labai, the artist I talked about, she's visiting Australia in May, and we're doing a documentary together. So I will come back with her in May, and we will come back here to Perth, and then go up to Pilbara and Kimberley to see the mine side and also rock art, and how she wants to learn from the indigenous community and how to like have this sharing with her art. So yeah, so this is another project. Yeah.
And is your project will that be open to general public?
Sorry?
Is the presentation, how you will do your presentation with people?
Right. I will have my open studio at Pika on March 11th, 5:30 to 7:30, which I will share more about like my project here. Yeah. Any questions? Well, thank you. So yeah, we can wrap up here, and if you have any more questions, or you can come look at the books. Okay, thank you.